Okay, welcome to this edition of Real BatDude Reacts. It's one of our first React videos on this trial, and this is Amber's part 15. This is day 15 of the trial of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, and she is finally testifying. We're going right into her recount of her going to Tokyo, and let's get into it. So we're going to react for about a half an hour, chunks of her trial testimony, and yeah, let's go for it. Let's play.
With the kids, and he had difficulty with drinking in front of them. He was trying to hide it, and yet he was dealing with some stress around his career. I didn't have a lot of details, but he was drinking.
But you were dating him
at the restaurant,
engaged,
and the kids were kind of, noticing, but not really sure what to make of it.
Objection calls for speculation and hearsay.
Yeah, thank you.
She didn't say what they said.
How do you know what the kids were
please continue,
thinking
but
or
don't say
feeling?
What they said. Okay, the kids.
The kids love him, and he loves his kids.
Johnny became upset with me for judging him.
I would too. These are my kids. I've raised them for what, at that time? 13 years, 12, 13 years?
It was like I couldn't win if I didn't do
You don't know my
anything.
kids.
If I didn't say anything to him about the drinking, if I didn't acknowledge it, it got worse. If I did acknowledge it, it was my fault and I was nagging. And I get it.
Yeah, when didn't you nag?
I wouldn't like to be told what to do either. So
yeah.
But it made him really angry, and the kids were
I'm setting a timer here.
On this press tour, and I was just concerned about them. I was concerned about them hearing us. Johnny screamed at me in the hotel room, and all I could think were the kids were in an adjoining room. What if they could hear us? I had just met them, and I didn't want them to think
they're probably on their phones and stuff, watching TV videos.
Hate me, not knowing what was going on.
iPads,
behind closed doors,
laptops, whatever.
I remember it was name calling, and he eventually passed out.
Do you recall what names he called you? Do you recall what he said?
I heard at this time nagging bitch all the time. Called me a cunt.
You called him that too.
He even said that he made a mistake.
Yeah. He's going to shake his head right there. I made a mistake marrying you for sure.
When we touched back down, he'd get rid of me and I'd go back to... He said some disgusting things to me. I don't know if I need to repeat it.
Okay, let's go. Michelle, can you bring up Defendant's Exhibit 1090? You indicated, I think, that he passed out at the end of that. Look
at her. She's so fake. I mean, she's just testifying to not just this little bit about his kids. She hasn't even gotten into some sort of major altercation in her eyes, and she's this emotional. She testified for 4 days in the London trial, and she can't handle this? I mean, we skipped over a part where the beginning of her beginnings, how she got into acting and all that. You can find that anywhere. You can find that IMDb or whatever. But if she's starting to have this much emotion over simple little stories, you're going to find a recurring theme of her over-breathing and over-dramatizing and crying and then breathing and then crying. I mean, she is fully acting on this. She's, in my opinion, she is way over-dramatizing, way over-emphasizing, and she is totally playing to the jury.
Did you take this picture?
I did.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to move the admission of Defendant's Exhibit 1090.
No objection, Your Honor. Thank you.
1090 in evidence. You can publish.
Thank you. And where was Mr. Depp when
she took
this picture?
So many pictures.
He was passed out with his head in a table in the hotel room, in our hotel room, not the kids' hotel room.
So many videos she recorded of him
on that press tour.
All right. I'm going to
that was that hard?
to August 2013.
That was that hard?
What, if any, discussions did you start having with Mr. Depp about moving in with him?
Well, after this, I was getting close to his kids, and he had a stint of sobriety shortly after that, and it felt really good again. And shortly after,
you may have felt you were getting close to his kids, but did they feel like they were close to you? Even on the day of your marriage, you said you had to fly off and do a job. You know, they'd even spend a full honeymoon, so-called, I think. I think it was after the wedding on the island. I'm not sure, but I think it was after the wedding on the island. They had a separate one in L.A. and a marriage ceremony on the island. I think she flew off that day or that night to do work. So they're never really. She testifies herself. She testifies that they never really spend that much time as a typical couple over long periods of time. So how much time are you spending? If you're spending not a significant amount of time on a daily basis as an average husband and wife do, you're spending even less time with the kids. So I don't believe this as she's getting close to the kids. Are they getting familiar with her? Sure. Do they feel a kinship or closeness with her? I don't know, but I don't think so.
That he started suggesting that I let him rent my apartment for the vultures. That's what he called the press. And he said now that we were like a known couple, now that it was out in the press, that my apartment wasn't like safe effectively for me. And I had a modest apartment in Los Angeles, and so he started.
I had a modest upbringing, a modest apartment.
On me,
yeah, you had a modest apartment. You're fairly unknown.
Neighboring houses, because of the vultures.
Especially back then.
It was a conversation, and then that
you
conversation.
You couldn't afford a nice apartment.
I should move in with him.
You didn't spend 30 years in the industry like he did at the time.
Always wanted me to go with his security guards, wanted me to have his credit card. Obviously, I wouldn't accept that, but the conversation about moving in became hard to resist because I was
some notes, Johnny.
Becoming a part.
People think he's drawing in a book. I think he's journaling.
Loving his.
I think he's writing down notes in a journal.
Like, more stability would.
And posted notes to them.
With him and his struggles with drug and alcohol use. And I thought I would minimize some of the jealousy and insecurity that he had. It was hard for me to justify working. Every audition, every meeting, every script I got was a negotiation or a fight. I had to justify it like as if I was saying, hey, let's have an open relationship. It was, and I thought that would be minimized if I could make him feel more secure. But, if we live together, certainly there would be more security, right? And that was my reasoning.
So you talked about still reading scripts and things. What
so
did you do?
You'll see she over and I love Johnny. I love Johnny. I love Johnny. I love Johnny. Oh my God, blubbering. You'll see her later blubbering. Oh, every time I still loved him, but yet you didn't honestly want to move in with him. You did it just to placate him. But that other testimony is just blubbering. I love him so much. I just love this man. Such a kinship, such a spirited kinship, but yet you're just placating him. Come on. What woman? There are millions of women in the United States alone that would kill to marry Johnny Depp, kill to date him. And you were just placating him? Come on. You were excited as hell to move in with him because you even had a modest apartment. I mean, come on. You knew he had wealth and resources, please.
Differently in terms of pursuing your acting career?
Well, I've always
that pains you?
I've always been really independent, and I've never imagined not working. I've worked from the earliest time I can imagine.
Okay, fine.
Come from, parents who worked until they literally couldn't anymore. You know, I never,
but you have such a deep desire to work. I mean,
having to explain my job or justify my job, but
you're married, or it's going that direction where you're getting in a serious relationship with Johnny Depp, multi-millionaire, world famous, and yet you still have this. Not that you shouldn't work, not that you shouldn't have a drive and desire to work, not that you shouldn't have consistent work, but you felt this drive and desire still. You know where this is heading. And in my opinion, you're manipulating him in this relationship in a pathway towards marriage because you're social climbing. This is what she does, in my opinion. She's a social climber. And she hit the jackpot with him. And she can't not work. I mean, great, have a drive and desire, but you're married to Johnny Depp. I think you can pick and choose now, be a little bit more choosy about what you do. So there's no need to have this massive rush of constant work. But hey, whatever. If that's what you really feel, that's what you really feel. I don't know.
And strong-willed, and I had to bargain. Every time I'd get a script, it would be, I thought you weren't taking another job. I'd always say, are you kidding me? That's crazy. I have to work. I support my family. When I moved out to LA, I'd get a check for, a gig, $600 or something. I'd save half for me, send half to my family. I kept having to justify taking work by saying, I'm supporting my parents, I'm supporting my sister, I'm supporting my family, I have to work. And he would say, you don't have to work, kid. Let me take care of you. My woman doesn't have to work. And that sounds really sweet and really romantic in some way, but it became a real fight, every time. He's
just listening. He's listening. He's not taking his drink yet.
I got a script. It was what kind of, how I was dressing, what kind of behavior I'd have, how did I have a sex scene? And then I started saying, no, I won't take the sex scenes, or, I'll take the part where I don't play, that kind of character, or then I started minimizing the kinds of kissing scenes that I had, and eventually I had to change the wardrobe that I could have in the movie. I couldn't have a sex scene, but that
all can't.
It didn't happen all at once.
Let me tell you, the director,
little thing after
producer
after little thing, and
would tell you have to wear this.
Pushing as many scripts off my desk as I could.
I would
think
think
the ones that had minimal makeup.
It's artistic.
Dressed as conservative as possible. Finding ways to minimize the scenes I had where I had a romantic involvement of any kind.
See, he's not drawing.
It was a constant
People think
battle,
he's doing
negotiation.
He's writing notes.
So let me take you back. Did you, as a result of your discussions with Mr. Depp about moving in, did there come a time that you did move in with him?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Thank you.
Yes.
Please, and let me ask you this. You've talked about penthouse. We've heard a little bit about penthouse appointments and suites. Could you just explain to the jury the different places that Mr. Depp had in Los Angeles and what they were called, just so we have some context here when we're going through all this?
It's a little confusing, I imagine. He had about, I think, 4 or 5 mansions in this beautiful,
Why?
border of Beverly
It's
Hills
been
and West
6
Hollywood.
years. You can't
And they were all on a
explain
cul-de-sac.
a series
And
of
they called it
homes
suites.
on a cul-de-sac
Because that was the name
without
of
he
the
looked
street,
painful?
And there are 5 houses, I think 5 houses. It could be 4, all, effectively, he had the whole
You don't know how 4 or 5.
Then
You
he had
can't
about
count this
5
many?
penthouses
You don't know how many houses he
downtown
has?
on the same
Please.
floor of the Eastern Columbia building, which you've heard about, the ECB. And
Come on.
Sweetser was, Johnny's kingdom. One of those houses was like
see, he turned his head and looked. She used the word.
It's a studio.
She used the word
and
kingdom.
it
They're
was
both laughing
where he
about
did
it.
music and hung out. And we spent some time in there.
Trying
but
to
that was
portray him as
effectively
some
Johnny's,
sort of lordly, godly king over his
place.
kingdom.
And then there was the
I was his
downtown
lowly
places,
little
and
peasant
they were
girl.
effectively empty, save for some furniture and one of Johnny's friends, Isaac, who you met, he lived there at some point before Johnny and I eventually decided to move in together.
Let me just stop you there. I just want to make sure we're clear. Are we talking about the penthouses or are we talking about suites here? For where
Isaac lived in the penthouses.
Okay.
The rest of them were pretty much empty. And my best friend, who I was very, 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 very close to, went through a breakup, and he very kindly insisted on moving her into this house. And
because
of
he's a
course,
nice
she
guy.
Said no for the first few times, but he insisted and said they were empty, and he would love to have her move down there. And he very kindly moved my best friend downtown. Problem is,
Rocky?
yeah, Rocky Pennington.
Why do you have
but
to
the
have
problem
a
is it's like
almost
30, 45
crying
minutes from
about
West Hollywood,
moving
where
your friend
my place
into an
was,
apartment?
which we call Orange.
A millionaire, luxurious penthouse apartment.
So
Why is this
when
painful
did
to talk
when
about?
did you move into the penthouses?
Shortly after he moved Rocky, my best friend, into the penthouse. So she was in one of these empty-ish apartments, and
So I figured I might as well
somewhere
too.
around that time,
Well, if my friend's going to be there.
I think it took me some time, actually, but
Really?
after that, I eventually
I mean,
agreed to move in with him and give up my place, although that made me pretty nervous, to be honest. But we were in this relationship that was very serious, and we were constantly traveling. Also, is another part of it. Is
constantly traveling.
a
So
matter of
you
days or
can't have
weeks. I'd
spent
go do a job,
so
he'd
much
go do a
time
job, I'd
with
come
his
back for a
children.
photo shoot or a red carpet, go on a location, go visit him on a location. And there was an incredible amount of travel and movement. So we weren't really, again, living the day-to-day
And
that you might normally with a
at
partner.
that
you know,
time,
you have a home and you move.
I think she has a daughter now. At that time, she did not have one. So she was a young 20-something actress coming up, scrapping her way up, social climbing. And do you think she really knew how to be a stepmom after being a lesbian wife, a wife? That has to do with anything, but they didn't have children, is what I'm saying. And so now, all of a sudden, she is a so-called stepmom, even though they're not married yet. And so she just admitted they travel all the time. And you think you're getting that close to him? Please. His children? Again, point taken, point made there,
Move in together and you have one home. We didn't have that. It was
Okay.
very different.
I'm going to take you to September of 2013.
It was very privileged, and you should have been
What
thankful.
were you filming at that time?
Very privileged.
London Fields?
Coming from a little unknown town in
Yes, that's right.
Texas.
Okay.
I was filming London Fields. I just started.
All right. And did there come a time that you became engaged to Mr. Depp?
Well, yeah, it was difficult because in that
Yes.
role was
The answer is yes,
difficult role.
and here's when.
Every time.
Does that have to be a
every
painful
scene that
answer?
involved sexuality or romance was like, I'd look at that on the page and it felt like I'd feel my gut tighten because I knew.
What kind of
was going
answers?
to be
Were you
an issue.
engaged? Yes.
But
When did you feel you were engaged? Is there a date? Her attorney, of course, naturally, just like Johnny's attorney, lets her blabber on, which is whatever, both sides do it. But, her attorney, when did you feel engaged? Is there a date and time when you considered yourself engaged?
Johnny dropped me off. I gave him the script. I sent him pictures of what I was wearing.
And this
my
answers.
wardrobe fittings.
Where's
I sent
the
him
answer for
everything.
engagement? When were you engaged?
My script with his team.
When were you engaged?
And the fighting eventually kind of minimized. It was clear I was going to do
How
this
does
job,
this answer
and
the
I told myself
question?
I had to do
When were
this
you
job.
engaged?
And Johnny had to go to London, I think, for some pre-production stuff for a movie he was going to do a smaller part in. I think it was called. I think this was.
Who Cares?
Is my best guess. So he dropped me off in London, and when he dropped me off in London, we had a few days at this hotel that we first, consummated our relationship in, was when we were on the London press tour, and our relationship
When did
developed.
you get engaged?
That was the same hotel, and we were in this same room.
Okay,
which is
so
a
we're in
Johnny
London now.
liked to be in the same room. And it was really sweet. He got down on
Okay, here we go.
one
Thank
knee
you for your answer.
and
Wow.
said, I want you to be my girl forever, my woman, my girl. I want you to be the rest of my life. Say yes to me.
And I'm crying.
He said he wanted to spend
And I just decided to say yes to placate him.
He promised me that every day when I woke up, that I would wake up and he would make me smile, at least once. And that would be his goal. And,
If you're head
looked
over
into
heels in love,
his eyes, and I saw my future hope, like blind hope.
it's
so
been
much.
6 years. You divorced him,
Yes.
wrote an op-ed, and you're still
almost-
crying.
I can't describe that kind of joy, I thought, if we were married, then this is real. This is real. This isn't a thing of...
Your insecurities, you didn't feel the relationship up until this point was real because of your insecurities. And yet you justify it by saying yes, like you're placating him, or you finally got this justification in your mind, your failed insecurities, that, oh, he finally loves me. You couldn't feel it before? I mean, not before?
This isn't chaotic, and this will change. I had so much hope in that moment. And I just said to him over and over again, are you serious? Are you real? Are you serious? Are you sure?
I'm insecure. I'm insecure.
So I thought, is this an impulse thing? My experience, Johnny, could be very impulsive. And he said over and over again, be my woman forever. I want you to be my wife, my wife, my wife. I, of course, cried. And
like
a
every
wonderful evening.
Of course.
And
when don't you cry?
He left shortly after, and I was like, the next day I had to go to work, and I couldn't tell anyone, and I wasn't sure. Part of me was worried that he didn't mean it, or that he wasn't sure.
Millions of women wouldn't just be crying for hours at the, hell yeah, Johnny. You woke up the next day still insecure? And you think that by saying yes was a way for him to mature, and in your eyes, Amber, in Amber's eyes, to calm him down from his party lifestyle, you're going to say yes. This makes no sense. You think that marrying you is going to help him be a better man. Not that you love him and you want to marry him for love's sake. There's always an alternate reason for her, which she claims for this, that, and the other. There is never just, I loved him, and so yes. If she wasn't really, truly sure, she's the strong girl from Texas that doesn't get bucked from a horse, then she should have been strong and said, Johnny, let's wait a little bit. Johnny, I love you to death. Let's push this back 6 months. I'd like to see you a little bit sober. You straighten up, brother, and I'll marry you. No doubt. We'll set a date or something. No, she was just yes with a hope and a prayer that he's going to change. A man in his, late 40s, early 50s, set in his ways, and you're the shining bright, princess that's going to change her man. This dude is set in his ways.
Didn't want it to be an impulse thing, so I didn't want to mention it. I want to bring it up. I didn't want to. And I kind of felt, I walked around for a few days like I had butterflies under my skin. And
butterflies usually in your stomach.
He brought my dad out.
That's the expression.
To London with my best friends, and my dad told me, Johnny has asked me permission for your.
And your parents loved him, and he liked them.
And
she's testified that he gave her dad gifts.
So while you were filming London Fields and
loved
Johnny
your mother,
back to L.A., what, if any, issues did you have with him on fraternizing with the...
What are you crying for? You just recounted a joyous occasion of being engaged. You're crying.
Please.
Why? Because you're guilty? Your guilt? Your shame?
Your Honor, I'm going to object on hearsay.
Your Honor,
people need to note that. You see how
everything but what Mr. Depp
the
says,
female attorney here is covering up the screen. She's also covering up
against interest.
Her mouth when she's talking to him. There's some people in the back, the audience. Sometimes she covers up the screen so they can't see everything. You'll see other videos, maybe from other commentators or whatever. She covers the screen a lot.
Give that a minute. While they're working on that, can you tell us what transpired between you and Mr. Depp when you wanted to do something with a cast member?
So, as I said, he came to London for his own work, and also dropped me off in London, where I had to be for a few months to film this movie. And he asked me to marry him. He brought my best friends and my dad out. They left.
I mean, how nice is that?
After they left, my co-star, one of my co-stars, invited me to go to a concert with him and some of the cast to kind of break the ice.
He is unstable, and in your eyes, Amber, and you're not certainly sure whether you deep in your heart should marry him, but you said yes. And he flew out your friends. Did she say her mother? I'm not sure. Definitely her father. And he's going to cause scenes, violence, misbehave. He's not going to act. This is an engagement. And he's not going to act at all like any sort of proper gentleman at all, even just a little bit, in front of all these people during that, say, week or so that they were out there visiting. This doesn't make sense.
And I'd be working with them for the next few months. And I had already, I already knew I couldn't be photographed. Even if it was platonic, I couldn't be photographed with men or women that other people could possibly spin as romantic. I had learned that, but in January, the hard way. So I asked him permission.
Because also he got out of a 14-year relationship with his past girlfriend, his partner, and has children, and maybe doesn't want to be seen in the eyes of London press, which gets around the world, as moving on so quickly. Maybe he has care and concern for his children so that they don't think dad is running around. Is that so hard to understand?
If I could go to this concert with the cast, and I said, Johnny, that he's my co-star.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
What question are we even answering? I don't even...
Don't tell us what the co-star said. Just tell us what your communication was with Mr. Depp.
Objection, hearsay. Her communications are hearsay.
I'll sustain the objection.
I'm not sure I understand.
If you want to approach, that's
Yes.
There's a lot of times the defense attorney doesn't understand a lot of the objections. If you watch it, I've watched all 14, and then this 15th day of trial, I've watched it all every day. And there are many times that the defense attorney just doesn't understand. Why is this hearsay? Why, I don't see why she can't say so many things of what other people say or have had said. That's called hearsay because the people aren't there to argue the truthfulness of those statements. That's why it's hearsay. So she always tries to recount statements of what other people say. And so you're going to find this a lot too. Now, did Johnny do this? I think he did. I think it's natural for human beings to talk in a certain way that says he said, she said, whatever. You know, they think it's a normal way of talking. Both sides, I think, did it. Him maybe a little less, but also he started off, so they gave him a lot of latitude when he was speaking. But there's a lot of hearsay objections that get sustained, get ruled in the favor of the plaintiff, Johnny's attorneys, in their favor. They sustain a lot.
That if I accepted
sustains
the
a lot
invitation and went
in
out
their
to
favor.
a concert, that the engagement would be off, that the relationship would be off, and that I was foolish, naive, for thinking that people could invite me to a concert in a platonic way. I tried to say that it was fine.
Objection, hearsay.
Exactly, hearsay. She's saying that other people in the cast, unknown people, that you're not naming specific names, plus you don't have any testimony written or recorded of them saying that she couldn't go out with them, or they saw that she felt uncomfortable, or they heard that she was uncomfortable, or when you reference other people's feelings or thoughts, that's hearsay, and she keeps doing it.
She's testifying about what Mr. Depp said. I don't understand.
No, she's not.
all right. I'll overrule that objection.
Please continue.
But that was a good
Yeah, he said
objection.
I was foolish and naive, that no one could invite me to. How could I be so dumb to think that somebody could just invite me to a concert? Why would they want to hang out with
really?
me? Obviously, it was because they
Really?
wanted more from me, and that I probably wanted more too. You know, I was basically asking for it. You're going to go backstage. What are you going to say to the band? And then I know how this plays out. And who's
he's shaking his
who's
head.
The other girl going to be there.
You
and
know,
how could you be so stupid? How
that's
could you
a
be so
bit
foolish?
much.
You're more
I mean,
naive.
that's a
You
bit
should be
much.
smarter than this. And I apologize.
International movie star Johnny
that
Depp.
whole evening, I think for a few hours.
He's
I spent
this
on the phone with him,
insecure.
texting, calling, or talking, hanging up. He'd hang up on me, he'd be upset, and then send me cryptic messages about my foolishness. And you know, I'm already doing a movie where I play this.
Okay, he's sending me cryptic messages. Those particular messages, I don't even think you have recorded. Like you've submitted to the court. You've used tons of text messages and other testimony that your defense attorneys did in cross-examination against Johnny's witnesses. But those particular ones, I don't think anyone has brought up or there is proof of it. So he'd send me all these cryptic messages. There's no proof of that. This is just statements. This is just her telling a story. And he's told some too, but, wow. Could he be an insecure person? Maybe. Only people in his inner circle may know. But how many people has he come in contact with? How many actors and actresses around the world? He's that insecure? It's kind of hard to believe. She's barely a known entity in the Hollywood circle. She's just coming up. She's not a top tier A-list decades long actress. If it was someone like that, I would understand maybe a little jealousy. But someone who no one knows who you are, Amber, at that time. Really, no one knows who you are. Only maybe some of the Hollywood inner circle that follow the lifestyles of Hollywood itself and only maybe know who you are. Again, he hasn't even announced that you're engaged. Announced that you're not even married yet. And he's so insecure. He's trying to... Wow. Anyways, right there, we're at 30 minutes of testimony. Hold on a second here. And I apologize for the pause. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up here and look for part 2 of our analysis. We're going to do these in half-hour chunks. I hope you enjoy it. I'm not trying to seem insensitive to those who are actual battered women. There are serious domestic violence cases. And I just, was she seriously battered and abused? I don't know. I think no one but a small circle of people know. And that's what they're both testifying against each other as to. He's saying it doesn't happen. She's saying everything happened. I'm not minimizing actual abuse victims. Just the phoniness and falseness and over-dramatized, over-dramatic testimony that she's giving with the heavy breathing and the crying. And she's so emotional over the smallest little sentences. So please follow me and look for part 2. Okay? Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Hope you like it.